All right, so I've got the calendar pulled up here, basically for the page numbers for Coleridge, but all we really need to know is that we're talking. I think we usually fill up the whole time talking about Rime of the Ancient Mariner. Usually. Is this just so weird, and there's so much there to talk about. People are interested in. Although my favorite one to talk about is Kubla Khan. We may start up on Kubla Khan at the end today. We may do Epitaph. Oh, we have so many things to talk about, and I added dejection and ode, so oh my gosh. We may end with Epitaph today or Kubla Khan, depending on how much time we have left when we get to Rime of the Ancient Mariner. We'll just have to play it by ear or feel, because our ears aren't going to really help with that, I guess. And so I wanted to mention, too, something that's happening. So this is week 4. We're, of course, discussing the week 3 readings. But Census Analysis 2 is due on week 5, day 1. So the second one. So you have to do another one of those essays like you just did. And it's due by week 5, day 1.
Next Tuesday.
Which is next Tuesday, yeah. So it's coming up pretty quick. But that gets our census analysis essays out of the way. And my guess, or not my guess, but my suggestion to you is to go ahead and get that done by Tuesday. Because I technically don't grade till the weekends. So, I mean, it wouldn't really hurt you at all because I do grade you guys first. So whatever I've got there, like on Friday or Thursday, whenever I start grading, I'm going to grade you guys first. But that doesn't mean technically you could have until Thursday to get it in. The problem is I'm also assigning the critical evaluation, which is a completely new essay type and way different, on that Thursday. So if you were not to have written the second census analysis and you heard all this stuff about how to do this new essay type, then you went home to write the old essay type, you may end up having some cross-population in your mind, cross-pollination, of like
That makes more sense.
different ideas merging together, and like you're doing the wrong things on the essay. I may not actually give like the full-on explanation that people have seen me do in 1302, because I don't want to. It can take a whole lot of a day to do like a full explanation. What I'll probably do is have like 2 printouts that I send over to Sulphur Springs. I may even just provide printouts here, but I don't think I'm going to do that. It's just so many, they don't want me to do that. But I'll probably pull this up on the projector for us, the assignment. And that way we can all kind of talk about it, have it in front of us, not have to worry about, how well the projector can be seen from far away. Because I'll just be talking about what's on the printout for them, and then from Sulphur Springs, and for you guys, I'll be talking about, what's digitally in front of you. And then in Sulphur Springs, it'll be easy. You'll just have the handout with you, Axton, and you'll be able to follow along and see like what it is that I, want. I'll also probably, though, to the end of that video, add more explanation on how to do a critical evaluation, because I think in 1302 that really helps, because people, they hear what you're supposed to do and you say, okay, got it. What do I do? And so I think maybe adding that video that shows like how I'd approach it from start to finish might help. It's a little long, but you can skip through parts and see like, well, okay, what does he do next? And you can just sort of, you don't need to hear everything I say, right? I think there's sometimes I'm saying things that aren't even really necessary. We can agree with that, right? Like a lot of the words are filler.
Mm-hmm. That's when you take the little part and you say why it's important to the story. No.
Yes, that's correct. That's the essay. You take one small part of a piece of literature and you make it seem incredibly important to the entire context of the whole. That's essentially it. But you have to get really creative to do it well. Otherwise, you're going to be saying stuff like, yeah, the main character is important because he's the main character. And that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for more like deep analysis. But that comes next Thursday. And the next essay is due next Tuesday. Today, we're talking about Rime of the Ancient Mariner. Oddly enough, it actually does at times rhyme. So, yeah, it's neat, huh? I think it's important when they provide these big explanations of what the heck is being talked about at the beginning, like large footnotes that explain the origins of something. I think it's really important to delve into that before we start talking. So I'll start down there. It says Coleridge describes the origin of this poem. We're on 1664 in my edition, by the way. Yes.
I just wanted to ask real quick if anybody in here has lotion on them because my hands are really dry and it's.
You should just do what I do. I let my hands crack and bleed eventually.
Yeah, I do that too, but it gets really painful and.
Do we have? It may have lotion. Do we have lotion?
Yeah.
Is it? No, no, it's not worth it. You'll make it one day. We don't want to send her out of the room for that. It's a good question. It's a good question. It's a question I probably should ask more often than having my hands bleed. Although I have been using. I hate lotion, but if you want to have hands that aren't cracking and bleeding when you don't have lotion, they sell this stuff at Walmart. It's called Cetaphil, but there's a great value version. It's essentially like it's supposed to be a hand cleanser, but it's more like moisturizer to me. And it doesn't have a scent to it. It doesn't have that greasy after feeling like lotion does. I can't stand lotion. I hate it so much. And if it didn't keep my hands from bleeding, I wouldn't even use that crap. In fact, when I get all cracked and like old looking, I feel like the Ancient Mariner. Coleridge describes the origin of this poem in the opening section of chapter 14 of Biographia Literaria. And a comment made to the Reverend Alexander Dice in 1835 in a note, "We are 7," dictated in 1843. Wordsworth added some details. The poem, based on a dream of Coleridge's friend Crookshank, it even sounds like a fake name, was originally planned as a collaboration between Coleridge and Wordsworth, and it was to pay the expense of a walking tour they took with Dorothy Wordsworth in November 1797. Before he dropped out of the enterprise, Wordsworth suggested the shooting of the albatross and the navigation of the ship by the dead men. He also contributed lines 13 to 16 and lines 226 and 27. To me, like it says, yeah, he contributed the idea of shooting the albatross, which like makes the whole poem, you know? You should add this, and it's like, oh, that's a good idea, I guess. And then the dead men piloting the ship is like the most haunting thing in the whole poem. So it's like the really big stuff, it's like all Wordsworth. Isn't that funny? It says, when printed in lyrical ballads, this poem was titled The Rime of the Ancient Mariner and contained many archaic words and spellings which Wordsworth believed hurt the sales of their volume. In later editions, Coleridge revised the poem in part by pruning those archaisms. He also added the Latin epigraph and the marginal glosses written in the old-fashioned style of 17th century learning. So these little explanations in the margins weren't there originally. Mm-hmm. They were added to kind of help explain to the reader. And all those weird spellings, like there were more of them. Far more of them. So I think what's interesting to note about this is, did y'all notice when you were reading some of these like side notes in the margins that they completely added information that wasn't even there in the actual text?
Yeah.
You're like, what? Like, how is it? Like, you know, sometimes you see like a word is explained. It says this is what the word means. You're like, got it. This one is like uses the word north and it goes into all this detail about like the northern hemisphere. You're like, what? What's going on? Like, and it's not there. It's very strange. So it really is meant to be like notes that help you explain information that sometimes isn't even actually there, and other times it's just clarifying what's happening. So it's just such a weird poem. And then the Latin that starts it, at least I think it's Latin. I readily believe that there are more invisible than visible natures in the universe. But who will explain for us the family of all these beings, and the ranks and relations and distinguishing features and functions of each? What do they do? What places do they inhabit? The human mind has always sought the knowledge of these things, but never attained it. Meanwhile, I do not deny that it is helpful sometimes to contemplate in the mind, as on a tablet, the image of a greater and better world, lest the intellect, habituated to the petty things of daily life, narrow itself and sink wholly into trivial thoughts. But at the same time, we must be watchful for the truth and keep a sense of proportion, so that we may distinguish the certain from the uncertain, day from night. It's a really weird thing to have this start this thing off. So that sounds like a real, like, kind of philosophical take or a philosophical approach on like how people should live their lives. And I think it's a really good one, actually. I think I took a personality test the other day, some kind of psychology personality test just for fun. It was a real one. It wasn't like a BuzzFeed or anything. It was like 10 questions to determine which Harry Potter character you are. It wasn't that. It was determining, like, to what degree you value certain things and are certain about certain things. So it showed that in terms of imagination and intellect, I value those like highly in my life. It says, I like thinking about abstract things. And I was like, yes. I have all those questions. I was like, definitely. And so I like pursuing knowledge and stuff like that. And like he says here, it's like thinking about the things that we can't see, the invisible natures. Can you imagine how many words we have for things that don't actually exist? We have a lot of them. We have words that represent relations of things, of, and, but. That's just saying something's of something means a part of something, like pertaining to, or in, inside of, on top of. And that's physical relationships that we're addressing. But we have other words like philosophy, sarcasm, subtlety, humility. It's totally about like human relationships and things that don't probably actually exist. That they're just things that we do and we've created words for because we're like, we need ways to communicate these things to each other for some reason. Even things that seem like they've always been words aren't. Not like brand new words, but that does happen sometimes. But like, did you know the word parenting wasn't used until like the 70s? Like when you say like, oh, I want to make sure guide to parenting, as though parent is a verb and you can parent your children into becoming proper adults, That's a new concept. It used to be just you would raise children. The children will grow, and your job is to be involved in the making sure they don't die. And they'll become what they become, but the idea of guiding kids in a certain direction is a relatively new one. Like they've got to go get them to college, and but we feel like it's sort of a thing now. So we constantly come up with these new words on abstract concepts that are completely invisible natures. And I don't think he's just talking about the scientific natures like gravity or the relationship between protons and electrons. He's not talking about gluons and quarks and things like that. He might be talking about those things. He's talking about spiritual things too, like the spirit, what we feel is the soul. Those invisible natures that seem to govern stuff, the forces that hold things together, forces that make he's talking about thinking on those things and considering those things is an important pursuit, and people should make sure to do those things. It's interesting, he's also talking about in this little quote that we should also temper that. So not completely get lost in the abstract all the time to the point where we forget about practical concerns. Anybody read Good Country People in 1302? It was the one about the girl who's like, she got the fake leg and she's got a PhD at the age of 32 and she thinks she understands the world. She's a philosophy major, but gets outwitted by a 19-year-old liar who said he was a Bible salesman. Really, he just steals people's odd things like fake legs and fake eyes. That's what he does. He's just a cruel guy. And she got outwitted by him because I think she spends all the time in the world on these, abstract concepts and never actually thinks practically about anything. So it's important to think practically about the world and not get lost in the abstract and completely lose touch with the reality. It's important not to do that. And I think trivial thoughts. I think of things like, think about like the trivial, like truly like trivial things that you really care about in your life. It happens constantly, I think. God, what is something truly trivial that we put a whole lot of care into?
How you cook your burger? I don't know.
I guess it's a good one. Like how your burger's cooked. The other day I went. I already have an example for that. Other day, like I had my favorite taco shop in Frisco. I think now actually Campbell's starting to beat it. I think that though the tacos are better there, it's just in terms of like consistency, I can get great tacos in Campbell. Like I went to this taco shop, or no, it's a Mexican grocery store, but I went and I got tacos. I want to get tacos there, and I said, I paid the money. I was like, I want my 12 tacos. They're little bitty tacos. They're not like you saw, like 2 bites you eat these tacos. And And so I order them, and then I pay, and then he said, "Oh, we're out of corn tortillas. Will you take the flour?" I said, "I'll just take my money back." I'm not. Flour tortillas are sucky for Mexican tacos. They just are. They're not. It's not good. I don't like it. And so I took my money back, and I had enough time before I had to pick up my daughter. I drove to Walmart, bought a pack of corn tortillas, came back there and said, "Here, can you make me these now?" And they did. And then they come out, and I said, "I want 12 pastor for here. That's what I want. It's pork tacos." They bring me out a to-go box, and so I was like, "Yeah, can you bring me a plate? I really want to eat them here." And they're like, "Oh yeah, sorry." So I was like, and then I open the thing, and they're all beef. They're not pastor. And they were on 10 tortillas and hot beef and cilantro and onion. I said, "Yeah, this is not what I asked for. Could I have what I wanted?" And they were like, "Oh yes, sir. I'm sorry." And I was like, "Yeah," because if I went all the way to freaking Walmart to buy these tortillas. No. I said I always say the exact same thing when I order. I say I'll take 12 pastor for here. Every time I say the same thing because it's $19.49, $20. I get 51 cents left over. It's every time. I hand them a 20. Boom! I get my tacos. It's the same thing I say every time.
Maybe he was new.
But I did tell him that I was in a hurry, and so I think he rushed. No, I didn't recognize the cook, actually. I hadn't seen him before. And so they came back, and they gave them back, and they were good this time. But it was interesting on how much effort I put toward this trivial thing, eating the right tacos at the right time. Doesn't really matter. I could have went and, very cheaply gone to McDonald's and got 2 double cheeseburgers for $2 and still gotten sustenance, right?
Maybe.
But I felt like these tacos are really important. And what this quote at the beginning of this poem was telling us is it's not at all. Think about the big things in the universe that matter, the relationship between things and abstract concepts, and spend a lot of time, putting effort forward thinking about that stuff. But how good your food is, or if you sustain yourself, it's fine. Doesn't matter how big a house you live in as long as it's good enough and it keeps rain off your head. But you still should care for those things. If you stop caring for those things entirely, you will die. What now? That's true, but I really still want to have fun now. I would like to enjoy this life. Oh, I see what you mean. I thought you were saying you don't need comfort at all. Just live in a grave. And I was like, I don't want to do that. Your house could be this big. As long as you're sleeping in it with a lid, that's fine. It rains off it. Just go use the public showers, and I'll never want to. Is that even a thing? Do they have that, at the YMCA or something? Public shower?
And the truck stop.
Truck stops. Oh yeah, truck stops. That just does not seem ideal.
I think you have to pay for them.
Pay to shower. I technically do that every time, I guess. I just pay for the water. You don't really think about all the things you pay for. Worrying about money is another trivial concern. Okay, so then we start out. So it's really weird to get this whole thing about thinking on the abstract, don't get lost in trivial thoughts, but don't forget the real world, before we have this weird story of this old guy who said he went on a trip. He was on a ship, and he shot a bird. It's just such a weird way to start the story, the invisible natures of the universe. And I was I wasn't expecting, I was thinking, okay, we're going to get some really philosophical stuff here. And it's just an old man telling a story to a guy who doesn't want to listen. It's such a strange story. Let's see, is there anything... Actually, I should open it first to you guys. Not first, because I've already talked for who knows how long. But... what were some things you guys want to talk about? I saw the discussion post. Y'all definitely found some stuff interesting. I didn't know if there was anything you guys want to make sure that you cover. I guarantee you the things you want to cover are probably going to pop up on the quiz. The general things people want to talk about with this thing are also the things that pop up on the quiz.
Okay, I was curious as so he shot down the bird with his crossbow.
Right.
And then he gets cursed or something. Is that the reason he's cursed? And there's all this stuff happening because he didn't consider there's this good bird here that did nothing wrong and he just killed it, and he was supposed to learn a lesson from that, or what is that about?
I'm pretty sure that's what you're supposed to get at. And it's he He shoots a bird. Bird didn't do anything to him. Whether or not it's specifically because it's a bird of good omen, did it mention that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bird of good omen. So you have an albatross flying. It's like, it's good luck. Good luck.
I mean, it was. I mean, they were getting out of the fog. They were getting shot.
Everything's going great.
Like, why would he shoot?
He
Doesn't even make sense. He just
Let
let me shoot that bird down.
Just-
That's fine.
Yeah. And I guess that's part of the confusing thing is he's like, it's like he sees that bird and he's just like, I'm gonna shoot that bird.
It's that bird everybody likes, isn't it?
I'm gonna kill it.
I'm gonna kill it. There's just some people like that, I guess. You know, you see a thing to kill, you're like, let's kill it. Fry it up, eat it. But he didn't want to eat it. He just was like, kill the albatross. Albatrosses too are like, they were on Planet Earth. Have y'all seen that show? Planet Earth season 2 or whatever. Like, that was on Netflix for a little while. Like, albatross is a gorgeous bird. It kind of looks like, not a pelican. I'm trying to think of what's the bird in no, the bird in Little Mermaid, the one who's constantly talking. What kind of bird is he?
Is
he a pelican?
Isn't he a pelican? I think he is a pelican.
Pelican's the one that's got those big,
Yeah, the big.
the jaw. Yeah. He's not a pelican. He's got like a little
It is a
seagull. Okay, so an albatross is like.
That's pretty big.
Oh, here, let me put it for you, okay? A goose is as to a swan as a seagull is to an albatross. So it's like they look almost exactly the same structurally. They look like they're built the same way, but one is just an incredibly gorgeous version of it. Like its feathers are like sleek and smooth, and like it's got this beak that it has color like up near the edge, but the color goes underneath the feathers and you can see a hint of it. It's like blue or orange or something.
Yeah, it looks like a sea swan.
Yeah, it's like a sea swan, yeah. And it has these oddly human eyes. They look like people eyes when they look. It's really weird. But they're gorgeous, gorgeous birds. And they have this weird like mating ritual where they like mate like I think once a year. And they mate for life, I think. So it's like the same bird will come back. And they do this weird dance where they're like, and they like rub their beaks together. Like it's, yeah, see how it almost like looks like a person. Like the eyes look like people eyes, don't they? Like it's freakish to me. Like they look like they're looking at you, like looking through your soul.
It looks like my eye.
Like my eye. I recognize this eye. But it's just, I think the way that and it looks like it has like realistic like eyebrows too. Like it looks like it's sternly looking. So that beautiful bird. See, I always just thought it was a bird. I didn't think of it like anything. But when I saw what an albatross looked like, I was like, oh, I kind of get this even more now. Like it's just this gorgeous bird, and like he goes, I'm gonna shoot that. You know. And why does he shoot it? I don't know.
Because it was there.
It is there, yeah, kind of.
Like, watch this.
Hold my beer. Yeah.
Now, a lot of people express problems with, and I don't know if y'all did as much, but a lot of people express problems with what happens as a result. He gets cursed, which we can totally understand.
Everybody died.
Yeah, but everybody else dies,
Like, why didn't he die?
which tends to give people reading this kind of a problem. You're like, yes, the curse of, you're cursed and now all your friends die. And it's like, well, that's what?
I mean, it's terrible for you, but your friends die.
I think what it was doing, like, it was cursed him, I guess, to teach him a lesson, I think. Because all his friends are gone, and now he has to live with.
He has to, he has this unsustainable desire to go tell people his stories. So like he has to, every like 6 months he has to go tell someone his story. He just can't help himself.
Yeah, that's the curse. The curse is having to tell people constantly the story, and it's like it overtakes everything else. It's like, crap, I gotta tell somebody else. And he gets it out to this bridegroom guy. Woo! And then probably like 5 minutes later, he goes to the next one. And that sucks. But I still have a problem with everybody dying. Like I will never get over that. Like everybody else on the boat. It's kind of like the God, whatever I don't know if it's Christian God in here, but like whatever force decides that all these things need to die, these people need to die, is kind of like, It's like, you did a bad thing. So bad that the lesson I need to teach you is more important than these people staying alive. I just find that that's sort of cruel by whatever in there is doing that. Although I guess there is almost an even more disturbing Christian precedent for that. Does anybody know what I'm talking about?
I think so.
Story of a guy who had everything taken away from him for no reason, really.
Right, I was just thinking.
Remember who it is?
Joe.
Yeah, Joe. Totally happens.
Yeah.
Nothing. He didn't even do anything.
No, he did. It was like Job. He's like the best guy, and it's like Satan's like, I'm gonna tempt somebody. It's like, well, I got this really, really good one. It's like Job is like the best, and it's like, give it a shot. It's almost like a bet between God and like the devil, and Job just sort of loses the bet, and he's like, I'm gonna take your wife and your kids. They're all gonna die.
In your house,
Yeah, you're gonna lose everything. You got no money. You're poor. You got nothing. And he still didn't curse God. Well, I'm gonna give you a better wife and better kids and a better house and more money and everything's back to normal. I don't know about you. Maybe Job is cruel. But I would be like, I kind of still miss, with her. I would prefer not to have lost all of them in the first place. I don't know. It's just, if your whole family dies in a house fire, and then you end up people take you in, and you're like, wow, I like these people better than my other family. I don't know. I feel like I would still miss purely decent family, and it would really weigh on me. And who is this Job guy that he can handle this? I couldn't handle that. I'd be pissed. I'd be people do this all the time. People are like, you lose your job at Subway. You're like, God, how dare you do this to me? My Subway job. How am I gonna make a living? I'm cursed. People get mad at that. And that Job guy, man, he's standing up to all that stuff. He'd get pissed. He'd be a little. This is so not fair. I'm such a good guy. But here we have this dude. We don't even really know if he's a bad guy. Just one time he's like, I'm gonna shoot that bird. It's like. It reminds me of, and I don't know if they put this in here. I really don't. It's somewhere that I saw this comparison that was made. Oh yeah, it's right at the end. There's a note. So on 1680, down below, Coleridge said in 1830. It's in note number 6 down at the bottom. Coleridge said in 1830, answering the objection of the poet Anna Barbeau, that the poem lacked a moral. She's like, there's no moral in this story. And Coleridge said, I told her that in my own judgment, the poem had too much, and that the only or chief fault, if I might say so, was the obtrusion of the moral sentiment so openly on the reader as a principle or cause of action in a work of pure imagination. And this is what he had wanted. Okay, he had wanted what he says below. It ought to have had no more moral than the Arabian Nights tale of the merchants sitting down to eat dates by the side of a well and throwing the shells aside. And lo, a genie starts up and says he must kill the merchant because one of the date shells had apparently put out the eye of the genie's son when it fell down the well. You're just sitting there and you're like, this is some good dates. You're just throwing them. It's good stuff. And then the genie of the lamp, it's like, you threw and hit into the eye of my son. I have to kill you now. And you're like, what? What are you just eating dates? It's absurd. So he actually said that he felt there was too much of a moral here. He wished it had been that somehow he just brings about the death of the albatross, not even on purpose. It honestly probably should have been more he just goes, he's like, hey guys, want to watch this game. This is a cool game I just came up with. You take a crossbow, somebody blindfold me. Okay, and you just pew, and you're like, did I hit a fish? And you watch it and you fall, and it's like, no, I hit an albatross. Oh, son of a dadgum. Those are good luck birds. That sucks. Or like not even a good luck bird. Like you shoot it and you see it hit something and it's like a dead sea crab on the surface. It's already dead or something. Like how did this even float to the surface? Shouldn't it stay underwater? I don't know. It's weird. And then it's like, how dare some giant sea crab comes out. How dare you kill my... Or how dare you deface the body of my dead son? You're like, what? He's not even alive. Like I literally accidentally hit a dead crab with an arrow, and now you're gonna punish me for it? So he felt like this almost had too much of a moral, because you really do feel that the fact that he killed this albatross, supposed to be a good luck bird, is the reason that he's going through all this. Maybe you don't agree with like the way in which it's being brought on him. Like you feel like, having all of his friends die, not really fair, but I get why he's being cursed, I guess. So, it's bad enough. It's a sucky punishment for shooting a bird. I've never heard of it. Does this happen when people kill deer? Like, you have to suffer the consequences? No? Has anybody killed a deer before? I haven't killed a deer.
All his friends getting punished kind of reminds me of the Full Metal Jacket movie. Like the one guy that can't do anything right. He brings like a donut in there and like stabs it, and then the old guy
and they keep punishing like the whole squad instead.
He's punishing the whole squad, and then he just stands over the corner and doesn't do anything and watches them like do it while he sits there and eats it.
And it's messed up too, because he's like making them hate him is what that dude is doing. It's so messed up. That does seem really similar, except for the fact that they're all dead.
Yeah.
I wonder too, like, what happens after they die? I guess just whatever position they were in. That's it. Like, who sends a letter to their family or something? Yeah, sorry, I killed a bird, and so your husband's dead. Like, back up. What happened?
You're like his family.
So many people.
I feel like this would be the time of like life where he just wouldn't he would just kind of go on about his life.
Him?
Yeah.
Like the Mariner guy?
Yeah, just he would be like, oh, well, that happened. He's telling someone in a tavern about the story, but not the family.
Oh, so he doesn't feel the need to they're like, where's my husband? He's lost at sea. Yeah, it's probably better you think that.
Well, yeah, because who would believe him anyways? He'd be like, I shot a bird and everyone died.
They're like, you murdered no, I didn't murder your husband. I shot a bird and everybody got killed. This is how it happened. And then two ghostly figures came and talked about my immortal soul. I totally heard them. It turned into a play where you got two people talking to each other for a second.
Yeah. It's like voice one, voice two.
Yeah, this totally happened. It was so weird too. And actually, I love that phrase. That phrase comes from this, where it says, I can't remember the rest of it. It said, water, water everywhere, water, not a drop to drink. Mm-hmm. So there's tons and tons of water all around, but he can't quench his thirst. So he's thirsty because he has no fresh water on this boat. And then they think he's dead, and then he's not dead. He's moved. With my crossbow, I shot the albatross. I wanted to go to 1668. I was wondering if y'all were bothered by this like I was when I first read it. Although I found it amusing later. And some in dreams assured, this is the line 131. And some in dreams assured were of the spirit that plagued us so. 9 fathom deep he had followed us from the land of mist and snow. A spirit had followed them, one of the invisible inhabitants of this planet, neither departed souls nor angels, concerning whom the learned Jew Josephus and the Platonic Constantinopolitan Michael Psellus may be consulted. They are very numerous, and there is no climate or element without one or more. What? I'm supposed to know that? That wasn't included before. It was just you're supposed to, I guess, have gotten this. Additionally, let me see. There was a thing about directions. Was that on the previous page?
Going from the South Pole to the equator. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it was just you were supposed to just know this.
I remember that.
I think it was a couple further. I don't know. Some of those. I'm gonna go to 263 though, because we have another one. It's it says the moving moon went up the sky. and nowhere did abide. Softly she was going up, and a star or two beside. In his loneliness and fixedness, he yearneth towards the journeying moon, and the stars that still sojourn, yet still move onward, and everywhere the blue sky belongs to them, and is their appointed rest in their native country and their own natural homes, which they enter and announce as lords are certainly expected, and yet there is a silent joy at their arrival. What? Like, it doesn't, that's not at all in there. He's like, literally using these footnotes that are supposed to help explain to add information that's not there. It's like the most confusing thing, and he does it intentionally. But it's like he doesn't want to like screw up the actual sound, so he doesn't try to force it in. He wants it still to sound the way it sounds, so he doesn't mess it up. It's just so weird. Like the whole thing is just so weird.
Page 674 is the one that talks about the South Pole.
674,
Yeah, I think that's right.
line 380. Oh yeah, there it is. Under the keel 9 fathom deep, from the land of mist and snow, the spirit slid, and it was he that made the ship to go. The sails at noon left off their tune, and the ship stood still also. The lonesome spirit from the South Pole carries on the ship as far as the line in obedience to the angelic troop, but still requireth vengeance.
No, I was talking about before.
Yeah, there's one other that's got like literal directions and like the equator it mentions, I think, and like all kinds of weird stuff. I remember it was early on. I just can't remember exactly where.
Yeah, it was like before they even left the South Pole that it said that.
Oh. I want to talk too about, I really feel like this is sort of an inspiration for all manner of like weird sort of like fantasy tales that came out, specifically like pirate mythology. I feel like when I watch Pirates of the Caribbean, it feels like I'm watching somebody read this and then later put their own kind of spin on it and made their own story. It just feels, I don't know, it just has that wacky like...
Feels like Coleridge believed in fairy tales and stuff.
Or at least he made use of them. But yeah, he like really had this sense of them.
Where did he originate from?
I don't know, like the fact that he read Arabian Nights and knew like all those stories of like genies and things meant that, I mean, he's probably just appropriating all kinds of stories and things that he's read over the years. And
Where was he raised? Born?
oh, I think it's South something. Give me a second. It's got like his little thing at the beginning. I remember more of the stuff about him constantly being sickly and on drugs. I don't remember where he was born. Small town of Ottery St. Mary in rural Devonshire. And when his father died, he was sent to school at Christ's Hospital in London. His schoolmate, lifelong friend Charles Lamb, talked about his loneliness. Found little stimulation at the university at Cambridge. And then he joined the cavalry. It says that he was one of the most inept cavalrymen in the long history of the British Army, which I can believe. Although rescued by his brothers and sent back to Cambridge, he left in 1794 without a degree. Oh, Southey was his friend. That's why I was remembering Southey. So Coleridge met Southey, a student at Oxford who, like himself, had poetic aspirations, and learned a lot from him. And then he met Wordsworth, and him and Wordsworth were basically best friends. And they wrote poetry actually together, reading each other's stuff and giving each other hints and things. And yeah, that's kind of where he came from. So I mean, it's just he was always a precocious and did I even use that word right? Like curious? I don't think that's necessarily right. I want to correct myself here. Precocious. Exceptionally early in development or occurrence, exhibiting mature qualities at an unusually early age. Yeah, it wasn't really how I was using it. I was using it as being like curious about the sense and outward things, as Wordsworth would say. Curious at an early age. Well, I mean, it kind of said that. But that's not how I meant it. Oh crap, I'm bleeding. Stupid blood. Get back in there. One thing I found really interesting was that Okay, he's always sort of sickly, and of course he was with Wordsworth for a while, but I think it was really a negative effect on him when, because they were both these smart poets and they were like living in this town. They thought that it was weird that these two poets would live so close to each other, like I think 2 miles from each other, like very close. So he could like walk to the other's house, and might have been 7 miles, but people thought that they were spies and that they were like agents against the government. So like when it came time to renew the lease for the Wordsworths, they wouldn't do it. They were like, we're not going to renew your lease. And they're like, what? Yeah, you can't live here anymore. And so like they ended up getting separated. And I really think that had a negative effect on Coleridge. I don't think that worked out well for him. Because he was always sort of sickly anyway. And he started getting, he started taking something, well, he was in love with Sarah Hutchinson, who was Wordsworth's wife's sister. So that would have made them like weirdly related. But I think he was already married, or she was promised to somebody. He actually wrote the Dejection an ode. He wrote about her, but he made it more generalized so it'd be more publishable. But like the whole poem was like, Sarah, you've made me feel this way. Sarah, Sarah, Sarah. Or I feel this way because of Sarah. And then like he started taking laudanum, which is...
I thought he was doing opium. I looked something up.
You thought he was doing what?
Opium? Because I looked up
Yeah.
Kubla Khan, and because I was like, who is it? I was like, this sounds like a real person. So I looked it up, and I found out that the story is about him reading about, Kubla Khan, or Kublai Khan, or whatever, who took over the Chinese empire at some point. And then he's on opium, and in his opium-induced state, he writes his poem about what he's reflecting on.
Well, we'll get more to Kubla Khan next time, but it's a lot of fun stuff to talk about with Kubla Khan.
Of course, I think that was from Wikipedia. So.
Oh, okay. His actual claim is that he fell asleep as a result of his use of drugs. And upon waking, had this perfectly giant, fully formed poem in his memory. He said it could not have been less than something like 3,000, 4,000 lines, 5,000 lines, something like that. And when he went to write it down, it didn't turn out the way he wanted. But yes, drugs definitely played a huge part. And he had developed an addiction just after being separated from Wordsworth, I think, and being in love with Sarah Hutchinson, couldn't do anything about it, where he was taking laudanum, which is, to me, this just seems like a bad idea all around. But it was opium dissolved in alcohol. That's such a nice sound to it, though, laudanum. It sounds like it's not that bad. Like laudanum,
I'm sure it wasn't
almost sounds like a
so bad
flower.
at the time.
What now?
I'm sure it wasn't so bad in that time. People were probably like...
That was the time when people were like, well, get rid of your addiction to morphine. Try heroin.
Yeah.
And all the things that they would come up with that would get you unaddicted to the previous thing you were addicted to were drugs that were just as bad as the prior thing, sometimes worse. It was just changing your addiction from one to the other. It was so dumb. But later he ended up, I don't like to mention this, I don't want to forget to mention it. Very interesting, he ended up kind of making a living at some point by... Women weren't really allowed to go to college. Different times. And what he would do is he'd go and do these lecture circuits with women. Like he would go and talk to women about poetry and stuff. And he would do like these lectures because they didn't have access to the college. So like people would come to them and teach them. It was kind of like a weird sort of like if you had homeschool, but with professors. They just come to your house and teach you because you can't go there. Very strange. But it was obviously cool that he did that. But I honestly don't think he did it out of some sort of need for good. He just realized, I can make money with this. He would do that all the time. Sometimes it'd been too long since he published something, and he'd basically plagiarize things and steal them and then say it was his own. Sometimes he wrote like great stuff. He wrote Rime of the Ancient Mariner along with, with the help from Wordsworth, and wrote Kubla Khan, wrote Dejection and Ode, wrote Epitaph, and all those are written on his own. But sometimes he would just publish something that was somebody else's and say, this is by Coleridge. And people would notice and point it out, and he'd say, like, yeah, well, I made money off of it. It wasn't like the best guy, really. I've always, very much like the way he just sort of lives in his own world, though, is very different. He's a very interesting, strange guy. I love this explanation of the way he wrote. It says, he described his own character as indolence capable of energies. And it's true that while his mind was incessantly active and fertile, he lacked application and staying power. He also manifested early in life a profound sense of guilt and a need for public expiation. So he needed to like be shown to have problems in public. Like he needed to be punished for it. Like, is that what expiation is? Like the people calling out your problems in public? I don't care about advertising for Facebook. The act of making atonement. Oh, he sounds like a Pharisee. A profound sense of guilt. Well, that's not necessarily a Pharisee, but he needed public expiation. He needed to make atonement in public, so he needed people to see him atoning for his sins. That sounds like a Pharisee to me. I feel like there's a lot of people like that we sort of know, where there's somebody you know that's like so smart and like so creative and so good at something, but they just want to sit around and smoke pot all the time and like play video games, and so they don't actually end up doing anything. I feel like there's those people we've known in our lives. You know, you could be so good at blank if you would just apply yourself. Yeah. Maybe. So, I don't know. So, let's see. What do I have time to? I really only have time to cover Epitaph, which is gonna be weird to cover Epitaph first. But unless there's more things you want to cover about Rime and the Ancient Mariner.
I'm not gonna read it.
The whole thing? Oh no, I just can't.
I thought you were just putting off reading it.
I actually did. I sometimes would read the very beginning of it, but I always did it in a certain way. Let me see. What is it? I always do it so like dramatically. It is an ancient mariner, and he stoppeth one of three. By thy long grey beard and glittering eye, now wherefore stoppest thou me? The bridegroom's doors are open wide, and I am next of kin. The guests are met, the feast is set, mayst hear the merry din. He holds him with his skinny hand. There was a ship, quoth he. Hold off, unhand me, greybeard loon, eftsoons his hand dropped he. He holds him with his glittering eye, the wedding guest stood still, and listens like a 3 years child, the mariner hath his will. The wedding guest sat on a stone, he cannot choose but hear. And thus spake on that ancient man, the bright-eyed mariner. The ship was cheered, the harbour cleared, merrily did we drop. Below the kirk, below the hill, below the lighthouse top. I just can't sustain that voice for like an entire time. But yeah, I feel like he just sounds like a crazy man. The other dude's like, what are you doing? And then like my narrator's like intense, but it's just too long to read. I mean, we probably could have, if we started at the beginning, we probably could have got done with the whole thing by the end, but what's the point? We did cover, right, because I want to make sure, I felt like this should have been taken out, 610. No, from 605 to 617, I just felt like was forced. And so that part says, to walk together to the kirk and all together pray, while each to his great father bends, old men and babes and loving friends, and youths and maidens gay. Farewell, farewell, but this I tell to thee, thou wedding guest. He prayeth well, who loveth well, both man and bird and beast. He prayeth best, who loveth best, all things both great and small. For the dear God who loveth us, he made and loveth all. It sounds like this whole thing was just like I don't know, I feel like it functions better as a mystery. Y'all seen Groundhog Day? Y'all see that movie? Groundhog Day is a day where like, dude, he's a jerk. and he has to go do this Groundhog Day where they like report on the groundhog and whether he saw a shadow, and he thinks it's like way beneath him, and he has to do it every year. So they have to go to Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, and he's got to go to this hick town as he sees it. And they got to rap on this little door, and the little groundhog comes out, and they say, "Oh, what? Oh, he looks like he saw his shadow." And he's like, "This is the biggest load of crap ever, and I have to do it every year, and it's so embarrassing." It's like all the stuff that Bruce has to do in Bruce Almighty. He's got to like report on the weather with like an umbrella hat on, and like at the waterfall. Report on a giant cookie while wearing a hairnet. It's silly stuff to him. And the next morning he wakes up. They get snowed in. He had said there wasn't going to be snow, and they got snowed in with a blizzard. And you can't leave the town. And when he gets snowed in, he wakes up the next morning, and he wakes up the same morning he woke up the first morning. Like the same song's playing on the radio. He goes outside, and everybody's like, "You gonna come see the groundhog?" He's like, "What?" And he has to go and do the report again. And the next morning he wakes up, it's the same day again. And he keeps waking up every morning, and it's the same day over and over again. And essentially, as you can probably guess, basically it continues until he learns something valuable and is able to get him out of it. But it's a pretty cool movie. I watched this the other night because it was Groundhog Day, February 2nd. And actually I watched it on February 3rd, I think, but close enough. So this movie originally in the script, the guy wrote that he was rude to, the main character was rude to a lady on the street who was a witch and went home, or Wiccan, and went home and put a curse on him. And so when he went to Pennsylvania, like he wakes up the next morning and it's the same day over and over and over again. But that doesn't happen in the actual movie version. He took out the cause and just made it where like the dude just wakes up and every day is lived the same day over. You don't know why. And I think it's more effective that way, because if you do it that way, then if you believe in Buddha, it's Buddha. If you believe in karma, it's karma. If you believe in God, you think it's God. You believe in whatever it is that you believe in, you think that is the thing that caused him to go through this over and over again. It's like, yes, it's my God is the one that caused him to do this. But if you say it's a witch, you're like, oh, that's stupid, And you might not even be into the movie anymore, because like as soon as it prescribes it to something specific. Granted, almost all the readers would probably be Christian who were reading this originally. But when he says, for the dear God who loveth us all, he made and loveth all, somebody's like, oh, that's not what I thought was going on. I thought it was some sort of weird karma thing. Well, never mind. This is some stupid little Christian narrative poem that I'm just told what to think. And so I actually think that it functions better if you take that little bit out and just have it like, we don't know what the heck caused this. He just shoots a bird, like some two spirits come and talk about him for a minute, and then he has to deal with all this crap, and he's cursed. I feel like that's a lot better.
I think that it's kind of funny how he said that he didn't want it to have a moral, but then on 610 in a little side note, it says, and to teach by his own example, love and reverence to all things God made and loved.
Yeah, I mean, it's like to him, he says he said in there, he's like, I wanted not to give it a moral. I honestly think I gave it too much of a moral. And I would actually agree. I think that whole little section at the end should be taken out so that, I don't know, I feel this functions better as like, what the heck happened to this guy and why? Because he's talking about the invisible natures in the universe, and like that's his quote he starts off with, and how there's these invisible things that we can't see and they govern everything. And to tell us exactly what the invisible natures are seems kind of a cop-out. I don't really like it that much. We're going to skip to the end of Coleridge. We're going to come back and do the other stuff next time, but I want to do Epitaph. There's this weird sort of disingenuous trickster nature to Coleridge. Oh, it's on 1708. That I feel is there with Coleridge. So I feel like he's always trying to get one by on somebody, or he's lying to us, or he's kind of a tricky guy. He loves making. Remember that thing where it said he loves to make atonement for his sins in public. And somebody who does that, I don't know if you remember, the Bible talks about Pharisees. I think it's a good parallel, where the Pharisees are like, they were told, don't be like the Pharisees, because you go out in public and you're like praying in front of everybody, like, God, make me a better person. You're like beating your chest so people can't hear you. You're like, you hear me? I'm beating my chest over here. Come on, I'm praying. Yes, I'm asking for forgiveness. It's very embarrassing for me. Get over here and watch. And so the Pharisees are like very publicly like, hey, watch me be humble. Which makes no sense. It's not humble at all. You're just like, come watch me be humble. Everyone should see me and my humility. Get over here. I'm the most humble of all the humble people. It doesn't make any sense. And so what you have is this guy who loves to make that public atonement, loves to get attention for apologizing, essentially, or doing the wrong thing, gives his epitaph, which I think is completely disingenuous. And he's totally full of crap. Because it does say down at the bottom, it says, written by Coleridge the year before he died. One version that he sent in a letter had as a title, Epitaph on a Poet Little Known, yet better known by the initials of his name than by the name itself. Maybe that's a thing. I've never heard that before, this poem. Like, he's known better as STC than he was by Coleridge. Now he's known by Coleridge, so I don't really know what people call him back then. It's like, yeah, what's up, STC? Maybe that's what they said, but I don't have any evidence of that. Maybe it's because I haven't read enough of his stuff. And this is presumably an epitaph, what's written on your grave. So presumably you'd be walking along and you'd see this little grave, and it says on the grave, it says this: Stop, Christian passerby. Stop, child of God, and read with gentle breast. Beneath this sod a poet lies, or that which once seemed he. Oh, lift one thought in prayer for STC, that he who many a year with toil of breath found death in life, may here find life in death. Mercy for praise, to be forgiven for fame, he asked and hoped through Christ. Do thou the same. I think that's totally, he's full of crap. I think he's very much wanting us to remember him and remember that he was famous and remember him as a great poet. And there's hints. Stop, Christian passerby. I mean, if he was truly humble, if he really wanted people to, they wouldn't tell people to stop. You're walking by, he's like, stop. Oh, okay, what? This guy's really intent upon me stopping, so this is intense. Stop, child of God, flattering the person that you're talking. You little child of God, you know. Of course you are. We're all children of God, you especially. And read with gentle breast. So it's like, what's the word? Not flirt. Complimented? Why can't I think of the word? Buttered up? What's the word for buttered up? He's buttering her up. The person is stopping to read. Okay? Flattering. Golly, thank you. That was the word. The exact word. I was even thinking butter. I was like, butter? Somehow butter's involved. It wasn't butter. It was adder, and it was flatter. Ugh. So, yes. I flatter you. Maybe you flatter me for a minute. Maybe I do something for you just then. No, you do something for me. Read with gentle breast. So read kindly what I'm about to give you. Okay? Just be kind with it. Beneath this sod a poet lies. I don't know. I think it's... calling dirt a sod... I don't know. Like, it's almost like, to me, like, has that similar sound of the word clod. When you say like a clod of dirt, it's just like a small chunk. So I think to me, sod is meant to like kind of play off the similar sound of clod, meaning a small, insignificant amount of. So it's like this grass, yes, but this small, nothing patch of grass. So beneath this very humble collection of grass in this location, a poet lies. And I think he means that when he says that. A poet lies. Or that which once seemed he. He once seemed to be a poet. You're a poet. You know it. Stop pretending to be humble. And I honestly think that there might be the dual meaning of the word lies there. Beneath this sod a poet lies. Maybe he's just saying a poet's lying to you. He doesn't want humility. He wants fame. I want you to remember me. Very well could be the thing. Hey, it's baby. Is that the one that Nikki was holding out there earlier? Oh, okay. I was wondering. I was like, whose baby is this? That's cool. Yeah. Now, I do have to keep talking about Coleridge. If you stick around, though, I'll say hi to the baby a little longer. But if you got places to go, it's fine. I understand. Right. Is it a boy or girl?
A girl.
Girl. Oh, she's adorable. Bring it over here real quick. Just real quick. Well, don't run. I mean, you are a new mother. So.
Sorry, y'all.
Hey. Oh, look at those lips. You're so cute.
Yeah.
You're so cute. Cute little girl. You can be a handful for your mama? You look like you're being great. She good? Like that all the time?
Not really, because she teasing now, so she...
Oh, yeah. 2.5 milliliters Tylenol. Or no, 1.25 at her age, but yeah. Bye. You have a good one. God, that teething, yeah. They get upset for no reason. You're just like, what's wrong with it? Oh, your teeth hurt. Your gums hurt. I apologize for that. Sometimes it's good to, what am I going to say? Yeah. It's not right. It's not right. You gotta be a good human. And I wanted to see the baby too, let's be honest. She was adorable, just here.
No, I could
Big old pretty eyes and like these like full lips, and my daughter had like cute little full lips too. Okay, so like when she was that young, I mean, she still does. They're just getting bigger. So he says, "Oh, lift one thought in prayer for STC." So he tries to pretend like he's reducing himself to his initials. We know who you are. Lift one thought in prayer. If you just lend me a thought, just the tiniest of little itty bitty baby thoughts, throw my way. But you're already standing there staring at this gravestone. I mean, it's like you've got me. He's just like, come on, get on with it. What do you need? He says that he who many a year with toil of breath found death and life may here find life and death. And in the next lines, he tries to lead you to believe this life and death is a certain thing, but I think it's something else. He says, mercy for praise. It means like mercy instead of praise. Mercy for praise, to be forgiven for fame. It's forgiven instead of fame. So I don't want fame, I want to be forgiven. I don't want praise, I want mercy. He asked and hoped through Christ. So through Christ I ask you of these things. Please give me those things. And pray for that I have those things. Do thou the same. You should also pray for the same things yourself. But I think there's multiple ways of having life and death. He's talking. You think he wants life and death. He wants to go to heaven. He wants to be forgiven, have everything go well for him. We should all want that. We should all want to be forgiven, to get to go to heaven, to have grace. I don't think he wants that at all. I think that's what he's talking about. He might be saying it, but I don't think it's what in fact, I sort of disagree. I know they say, oh no, for in the sense of instead of. But if you read it the other way, that's exactly what he wants. So, let me see. Here find life and death. I think he's talking about fame. When he says, I want mercy for praise. Essentially, like, I want mercy for the praise that I so much want. So please be merciful for the fact that I want to be praised. And then to be forgiven for my fame. I want to be forgiven for the fact that, yes, I very much do want fame. So I think if you could read it the way that I think it's kind of intended for you to try to read it that way, the instead of. But I think really, and even if he does mean it in the instead of way, I still think it's disingenuous. I think the life that he wants in death is the fame. A poet once seemed he. I don't know. Just when people are falsely humble, I feel like I'm really good at just nailing it. And I feel like he's just lying through his teeth here. I feel like he wants us to remember him. That's what he wants. Otherwise, why say stop?
Why say anything at all?
Yeah, just put Coleridge. Or have somebody else write your epitaph. Dude wrote his own epitaph. That's like, you're getting, somebody's introducing you at like an event, and you're like, here, read this about who I am. What? Yeah, I want you to read this thing about me. Like, is amazing. I've known this guy for years. He's my best friend. Like, what is this? Writes his own epitaph. It's almost like making your, what is it? I feel like I had a perfect comparison here. Writes his own epitaph. It's like sending yourself a secret admirer letter. And people, somebody is admiring me. You're so handsome. Oh, stop. Oh, stop. and you just read the whole thing out loud. Somebody sent me this. I have no idea. It wasn't me. It's not even my handwriting. Or at least I don't think you'll recognize it if it was. But it's just such a weird thing to me reading this. It's like everything seems so forcedly humble, which when people act that way, to me, it's just so fake. And he does want life and death. He wants fame. Fame. I want to live forever. Is that the song? Or is the first word something else?
I don't know.
Maybe it's brave. He asked and hoped through Christ, do thou the same. Yeah, just think it's disingenuous. And we'll get to, I want to make sure we get through Kubla Khan next time, then we'll go to dejection. Dejection is just meant to be sad. So when you read that, you're like, what am I supposed to get out of this? It's very, very sad. He was having trouble not being able to have Sarah, and he was also having trouble with drugs, and so he's just basically writing about sadness. And it was his response to the beginning, I think, or the whole thing of Ode Intimations of Immortality by Wordsworth. He was like, well, this is my ode to dejection, like to the just wanting to disconnect because of how bad everything is. If I were you too, I would read the intro part to Kubla Khan, because I think it really helps set the stage to Kubla Khan before next time, because I'm going to be talking about that. Or, I mean, if you want to just let me talk about it, it's fine. And then we'll get to dejection. So, y'all have a good one.